And we are going live. All righty. Well, hello, Amanda Campbell with Vera Bradley.
Hello.
Would you like to introduce yourself and kind of what you do at Vera, and then we'll jump into your mentoring moment?
Sure. Right now I'm a product development manager at Vera Bradley. I've been there, I think, a little over 12 years now. So we work on kind of the second stage of product design and development. So the designers will work on it, they'll hand it off to us, and then we work with the factory to get everything ready for production. So we're very a part of the process. It's very collaborative. I have two teammates, two girls on my team right now, and we own all of the handbags and accessories for our full line stores. So that's what we work on.
Great. And one of the things we are picking your brain about today is launching a product line. So many of our clients who do product, we often have them who are doing subscription boxes. And so one is called High Point Ready, and she does a box which is all things to be used in grooming your horse, or if you're going to go to a horse show, what kind of things do you need? And then we have another called Flourish and Flounce, and she does tablescapes. And so we have a number of these companies who are doing these subscriptions. So they might be a little more used to a launch because they do it every month, but several don't necessarily revolve around a launch or really base any calendar dates off of when they sell product or new product. So can you talk to us a little bit about what goes into a launch and kind of how to schedule one?
Sure. So our company is very calendar based. When you're taking a product that takes from a year to a year and a half to develop, you have to obviously be able to work backwards and know when you need to start something to be able to have it in store for a certain time. So take example this winter. So we just had product that launched for holiday. If we didn't have that in time for the customer to purchase for a Christmas gift, we would have lost a certain amount of dollars, right? So we always want to think, when is it important for us to have this product in store? So we start from the planning date. So we'll plan, hey, we want to have this new purse in winter 2020 because we think it'll be a great holiday item. We work our way backwards. We start our calendar. We work on the prints that are going to go on the item. We work on the silhouette of the item, and that's a year and a half in advance. Then we work on the silhouette of the item, and then it's very cross-functional. So you need to be clear with all the other people involved that you work with. What do they need from you and when? So we have a company calendar that's posted where everyone can look at it. So that could be something that even if you have a small business, you could create that calendar for your business and say, hey, this is when I want to have this product, this service available to my clients, right? Set that goal and then work backwards. So it's going to take me 3 months to get my website built. It's going to take me 6 months to actually get my product produced. And you just add those dates. You see, make your timeline and see what can overlap and what is reliant on something previous, right? So your website could be built while your product is also being built. Those could be done at the same time, but you can't have your website built until your logo and new kit for your color story for your company is complete, right? So those would be dependent on each other. So I would work on that calendar for your business and then kind of work your way backwards. And then also if you can't hit or achieve a date, you're going to need to adjust what that calendar is, right? So as you're working, it's very fluid. I mean, we would love to stick for those exact dates. It never happens. Something always happens, or we're like, hey, this sold really well. Let's try to sneak this in. Well, it's very late, but we'll do our best to try to do it. Or, hey, we missed that date, so now I'm going to need to push this out. Maybe my product can't launch in spring. It'll have to, launch in summer. So just things to keep in mind as you're working on your project.
Okay. So what are some things, some key dates that we would have to include within our calendar? Like you said, I love my big wall calendar, and I'll share a picture of that below here, but I love to be able to see my whole year so that when I look up there, I see every month exactly when my events are for the WEOC. And then maybe I have some graduations for some of our masterminds or accelerators. And I have those key dates up there, and I have them all nice color coded. I do it at the beginning of the year or the end of the year before. And I have to then, so if I have, say it's March 6th that I have a graduation, I have to think about when I have to order the awards to get, and then how does that take to get engraved and then shipped here? And then how many people do I need to invite to the graduation? So I have to get this on people's calendar. They show if I put that out there in time, for them to clear their calendar for that. So what do you think are some milestones that you would have to do for a product?
I would, as I mentioned before, like work your way backwards. So I would start with, what am I launching? Right? So you say, hey, I want to have this available to my customer in summer. Let's say it's a swimsuit. You're starting a swimsuit line. So you want that available.
Okay, this is a good point too. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? What if you do a swimsuit and that's kind of dependent on when people travel, right? So we actually have to research on when our customer needs that product as well.
Yep.
Correct?
Exactly. If you don't know, so look at your competitors, right? When do other swimsuit companies launch? Get on all their email lists, see when they blast you and say, hey, our new season is here, or hey, this is our big launch, and see what they do. Or try to find a mentor or someone who works at a company who makes a similar type product, and then they can share that knowledge with you. People are always willing to help other entrepreneurs. Again, I'm happy to like speak with people and mentor them and share, because you want everybody to have a fair shake at what they want to do. And it's, people love sharing their knowledge, right? So yeah, I would research and try to figure out when people want that. The great thing is now almost everything is digital. People are buying from websites, and seasons are almost like really melding together. And maybe there isn't really a season anymore for things. I mean, obviously you're going to wear warmer clothes, more fleecy clothes, fleece lined jeans, which is what I'm wearing now in the winter. But people travel in, they used to travel in January, like for fashion, it was resort January, February, and that's the coldest months of the year. But people also now, then there's spring break, then there's summer. So I would say, your swimwear would be January through October, but then what if you go somewhere warm for Christmas? It's almost year round. So I would research and see what those other companies are doing to see when you're going to launch your product. It's hard to say specific what the calendar dates are, because it's so specific to the businesses. I would say some things that really help me is you make a checklist for each of those mini milestones. So like you said, you have your teammates who are going to graduate. So what needs to happen in one of those accelerated graduations? And you make a little list in your, Microsoft Notes or whatever, you store it, and you say, I need to order an award. I need to make sure I invite 50 people. I need to make sure I reserve a venue and I get appetizers, right? So you list those out, and then you say, ordering appetizers, lead time 3 weeks. You put a meeting request on your calendar for 3 weeks prior to that meeting. And I save all this stuff in my meeting requests because it's hard for me to go look multiple places. So in that graduation date, I'd say, order apps, 3 weeks ahead of time. I put that meeting request in my calendar. It'll remind me, I'll do it. Remind those 50 people to come 4 weeks ahead of time. Order that award 6 weeks ahead of time. And I work it back, and I set those as meeting requests for myself as reminders. And then I put in there exactly why I'm doing it. I say, hey, this is 6 weeks prior to that graduation. And then I remember who it's for and why it's in there. So that really helps me. So checklists and meeting requests are kind of what really keep me on track. If it's a new business, I would say, I guess some basic examples would be, you need to know what like your branding is. So like I was saying, I think it's important to work with, this is just from my experience, but like a graphic designer or someone to get like, what's your color story? What's your logo? Because when you're putting any of that like information or paperwork or marketing or like emailing people, you want to have a consistent message. So people are like, oh, that green leaf, that's for that new tea company or whatever. I remember they talked about it and they're going to launch soon and I'm interested. So, be in touch with your customers and have that consistent branding. If you're going to have a launch like party, you'd obviously need to have like a venue and figure out how you're going to do it. Maybe it's a Facebook Live and then your website goes live. So try to, put those things together. But again, it's so dependent on the business. So I would say just think about what you want to do, what you want to launch, and then work backwards. And those steps will kind of like reveal themselves to you.
That's great. Yes, I love checklists. And like I said, I love my calendars. And I too have to put it on my wall calendar, but I need it in my actual daily calendar or I may miss it. So I only put key dates up there. I don't know about you guys.
And it's easy to search in my inbox. So I search by season. So I can say, fall 21 or whatever I'm working on. So if you're looking, you could say, marketing or, spring launch and label all those meeting requests with a keyword that's the same. Then you can go into your Outlook or whatever you're using, your, Google Calendar, and find all of those at once. And you're like, okay, this is what I'm working on.
Okay. So for to launch a product in your line, we know that you have to actually have like a ship date to the stores, I'm guessing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You have to have a ship date to the country, a photo shoot.
Yes, depending on, yes, a photo shoot. And then we also have like sales meetings where people will come in and see our line. So that's, again, depending on what your company is. So there would be, our key dates are, we're developing the product, we're trying to get it ready for production, but we need to approve it to those photo samples that are made for marketing and for sales. So that's our first key date, is like photography samples or marketing samples, getting styles approved to that. Then our next key date is really approving it to that production to make sure that they can be produced in time, shipped here in time, and in our stores in time. So those all kind of tie together.
Okay, great. I think that is definitely something that we skip out on. We know that using our phones is so easy. And if you get a little light box, at the WEOC, I purchased one that people can come in and use, so that if I'm thinking of Linden Square, which is one of our clients, she does corporate gifting. Mm-hmm. She bought lights and everything, and she can set it up in a special place in her house and make sure that she takes some brightly lit photos that can be kind of quickly edited. So if you aren't doing that by yourself, you'd have to hire a photographer, and then you have to get on their schedule to make sure that you can get it done. But I'm glad that you talked about the photo shoot, because that's one thing I think we just kind of do at the last minute if we are just selling product online, because it's like, it's easy, it's live all the time. We just take it down when it's not selling or after the sale, and then we just put up another one. But why would you say that launches maybe spur excitement around a product rather than just putting one up every now and then?
I think a sense of urgency is always an important thing to make someone want to shop or purchase something, right? So think about yourself and think about a gift. If you see something online and you're like, oh, I love this, but I might wait till it goes on sale or whatever. And then if you look a week later and it's sold out, you're like, oh shoot, next year when they have this, I'm going to like get it then and pay full price and I'm interested. So I think having a sense of urgency for those types of things will help people like want to purchase it and not wait around. I also think like, everyone's on their phones now. People are working from home. I feel like there's more social media happening because people are connecting through the internet. So use those platforms, like be on there. And if you're active and available and people see you, I think I've heard before, you have to see something X amount of times before you're interested in it or before you want to purchase it. So the more those people see your product and hear about it, then the more interested they'll be in being involved in it or purchasing it. And, ways to do that, again, look at other companies that are either similar to yours or that you want to emulate. Are they doing a giveaway every Monday? Are they doing a poll? And if they get a certain amount of results, you're entered in something. Are you, doing some teasers where you shipped a couple out to random people who commented on your Facebook post as like a surprise and delight to them? So just think about ways that like you could be engaged with something and how you would want to be engaged with a company. And you can, again, get ideas from other people or do something that you would just personally want to do. I was also going to say for photo shoots, sometimes that has to happen much earlier than when your goods are actually produced. So our samples are almost never 100% correct. So you can kind of fudge what you have, right? You only show the image that looks the best, or you could Photoshop potentially, you may have to mock up, you may have to pin something or glue it or whatever. So there's ways you can be creative to make your samples look how they're going to look in production, even if you aren't able to achieve that when you need to have that picture done. So your, professional photographer can shoot it and you can get it loaded on your website for launch. So again, something that you learn kind of as you go, but it doesn't have to be perfect. A sample for that.
Okay, wonderful. Thinking about your marketing for Vera Bradley, do you have any idea of if things sell better on a person, like in what do we call it, a lifestyle shoot versus a still photo where it is just kind of the white background? Do you have an idea of any of that?
I don't know that we could tell. I guess you could probably get like click-through rate for something, depending on how robust your website is. You could say, hey, we had 50% click-through when it was on this person's body on the beach for this towel, but it was only 25% click-through when we had it folded down and sitting on a table or something like that. Then I think you could probably get data on like how many of those turned into sales. Again, this is like a very complicated system that probably early on entrepreneurs might not necessarily have access to, but something you could do is try 2 different photo posts on your Facebook page of your product. See how many more likes or comments you get from that. And that's a great way to see like, hey, people were super engaged with this one when it was a real person using the product. And they're like, I never thought to use it like that. I mean, I always think the ones on body or on someone where it's a bit more relatable and you have more of a connection and a feeling to it, I think it's always a better choice. Depends on your product. If you're going for like super clean, minimal Japanese designs, whatever, and you want it to look a certain way, maybe it isn't best to have someone in the image. But again, it depends on the product, but I would test it out on like Instagram, Facebook, like that's all things you can use for free and see what your engagement is. You can also ask your potential customers, which one of these, like, do you like better? Yes, no, like who doesn't love to do the surveys on Instagram, like pick A or B or whatever, like people will click through and just do it. If you email them a survey, they'd be like, next. So try to engage where they are, I would say, to get that feedback because it's there.
Okay. Now, what happens if people set a launch date? They're like, okay, I'm not going to just upload willy-nilly. I'm going to do a launch date. And I've done my research and I know that people are going to want to buy Mother's Day gifts about 3 weeks in advance. So I know I need to get that up there 3 weeks in advance of Mother's Day. And so that means I need to have this photo shoot then, and I need to share or get some feedback on the product. When you're talking about showing it to the sales people, your sales reps, would you count that as shipping it out to influencers too, to get their feedback so that it's posted by the time, what are your thoughts around?
Yeah, you do. And it's actually something that we deal with all the time because now influencers, micro influencers or influencers are very important. Like, again, all those people you follow on Instagram, like you trust them more than you trust even your favorite store emailing you, right? Because they've tried it, they give you a review, they give you feedback. So yes, I would say that happens somewhere between when you're making those photography samples and before production, because you don't want to send a sample that doesn't have something correct on it to one of those people, because then what if your zipper didn't work, or what if the color bled or something and it wasn't your final production? So it's a delicate balance of, you want to get it to them early and just be upfront with them and say, hey, I'm going to ship you this. We need to have your photography style images or your post by this date so that we can share it because our launch is this date. So be clear with them and make sure that you spell that out prior to either signing with them, or I don't know if you have to pay them, or sometimes it's a trade for product, but make sure they're clear on when that date is that you need it. But yeah, you'll have to do that prior to launch. If you want them then in your hands to use in your marketing, you'll need it even earlier. And then you have to check with whoever's helping you with your marketing or who's building your website when they would need that lifestyle image to put on your website to then say, hey, this person used it and tried it, and we think that you'll enjoy it as well. So again, you have to kind of work backwards.
And when you were talking about sometimes the calendar does not stay still, it moves around. What happens if you were to say, this is when we're launching it, and then like COVID hits and the supply chain kind of fails on you? How would you adjust your calendar, do you think? Like, this has happened to many of our clients. So it's kind of this fine line on, they're supposed to get a monthly subscription box, but I don't have any of my product. So what are your suggestions on that?
I would say think about what would you want as a customer for that company to communicate to you or to share with you? So I would want them to say, hey, life is crazy right now. We get it. We really want to support you. And we're like so excited that you're part of our subscription. We could not get our box out in time this year, so we sent you this instead, or something. Do a little like surprise of, this is what I could get you. Maybe you have some like back inventory of something that never sold or whatever. Give it to them as a surprise and say, this is to tide you over. We'll be sure to give you your box by whenever possible. Don't promise something you can't deliver on, because right now it's hard because we don't know sometimes what those dates will be based on COVID and factory shutdowns, etc. So just say, we'll get it to you as soon as you can. And I would also give them the option, like, if you need to cancel this month's subscription or whatever, you can, or you can say, per our policy, at this time we can't cancel the subscriptions because we ordered them already. So we'll be sure to get it to you, and like, know you can count on us and trust us. And we appreciate your flexibility because we value you. So just let your customers know. I would say be honest, right? Nobody wants to not understand what's going on. This is a perfect example. I actually have a bunch of air filters in my home that I ordered. We have an older home, so I got them just for safety of the older home. Well, then COVID hit. I didn't get any of my filters for my units. And I was like, I need to have these in my home. I just bought this unit and now I can't use it. And they're like, oh, because of COVID and supply chain and whatever, I had to call 3 or 4 different times. It was super frustrating. So I had that as well. And they were just, I could tell, overwhelmed. And the poor person on customer service was like, she's like losing her mind. And I'm like, I know it's not your fault. Just please keep me in the loop. I need to know I bought this unit and I can't use it. So again, it happens. I think people hopefully will understand. Obviously, there's going to be people who are upset and whatever. So I would just say, try to appease them and give them something like in the meantime. It's like, I think what they miss is getting that box and like opening the surprise. So what can you surprise them with? Or say, here's a credit towards next month's, or hey, you're going to get to come to this party in the fall when we can open back up. Like, give them something that you can do, or maybe that doesn't even cost anything. We're going to do this free Facebook Live for only invitees, where you can do Q&A with me, or I'll let you see behind the scenes stuff from next year or something. Give them something that's special to them. And I think they'll understand.
Oh, that's good. That's really good. I mentioned High Point Ready, and she's the horse girl. Mm-hmm. And this happened a lot for her. We talked a lot about diversifying her suppliers. Mm-hmm. So we may, if you're fabric or apparel, you may be ordering online mostly from, say, LA. Mm-hmm. But how can you build up local suppliers as well? So it might be a little bit more, it might be a little harder with apparel right now. But if we think of these goodie boxes, basically, what can you do to change out some of your suppliers so some of them are local, so you can get some of your goods from them? You guys are kind of tied because you're actually making your product and it's coming from mostly overseas, correct?
Yeah, we do produce some overseas. We do produce some domestically, but I think every apparel company this year has really diversified its supply chain. It's so volatile based on who is getting hit with tariffs, who has sanctions, et cetera, et cetera. And I think everyone's kind of learning that. We have to move quickly, but I think having a diverse portfolio is very important for your products, your supply chain, everything, because you really can't guarantee. I mean, China was like the place to produce for companies for so long. And then there's a 25% tariff for imports on them. So a lot of people, factories are closing, or either, that's going to be passed on to your customer if you produce there. So just, yeah, it's important to follow the global news, but I would say diversification is very important, and having something local. I was thinking about like Shindigs. They're a local company that does like those party supplies. And I saw they did like Christmas parties in a box for employees. So being able to like pivot too with what you offer and say, hey, we do these party supplies. Well, obviously people aren't holding proms or parties. So we're doing this party in a box we can send to you. So if you can pivot quickly too and use the items that you have to get to your consumer, that's also helpful.
We have a question from the audience, and it's Elizabeth Sutton, and she's asking, okay, what happens if you have a product launch and it's not successful? So of course, I think back to when we did that, those couple lines, in 2012 and 2011, and we did the whole line. We bought all of our product. We'd done all these things, and it was like, okay, it's not the right thing. So we have to scramble and kind of, how do you fix a launch gone wrong? You personally in design.
Sure. I don't know that you can fix something that launches and isn't a success. I think you can always learn from it. It's like the age old saying when you say you learn from your mistakes, right? And I do learn the most when I do something wrong, even as much as I hate being wrong and like not succeeding in it, right? It just like it tears you up, but I learn the most. So you launch the product. And so something I would do, number one, get feedback, ask people why they didn't like it, ask them what they would like instead. Maybe you realize that you didn't listen to what they actually wanted. It used to be that we had 4 launches a year, spring, summer, fall, winter. We told people this is what we're making. They bought it. Now the customer's like, this is what I want. I want this color. I want this. I want it at this time. So we offer now like a line of customization on our website. You can pick what you want and you can order that. So when people said they wanted that, we kind of pivoted and now offer that. If she has a lot of inventory that no one bought, think of creative ways to reuse it, right? If there's like a liquidation route you could go, depending on what you have. I mean, there's, companies use like Zulily or things like that. You could have an outlet sale where you sell it in person to people, and try to, so think of ways you could use it. You could, if you're not really needing the money from it because you have, other sources of income, you could then donate that to something and advertise, hey, we made this donation of 500 boxes of this horse thing to this equine hospital, and who's been hit hard with something during COVID. And so, use that as then marketing and advertisement. So use it as a positive and then learn from those things. So again, it's like your customer is king here. Listen to their feedback. If you're like, this wasn't successful, we're going to try something, we'll try it again next year, and you're going to do the same thing, probably not the right decision. Like figure out, ask your customer. And it's those hard questions. Like they're like, the fit on that sweatshirt was bad. Like the arms were too tight and it was like way too long. And I was like, how am I supposed to wear this? You have to get the feedback from people so you can improve. And it's hard to hear that stuff. But that's important as well. So,
we both have dogs going on. I still remember the flip-flops that I produced, and I didn't realize there was, and this is for all of you, I didn't realize there was a different toe length for Chinese people than Americans. And I mean, we had never done footwear. So they kept trying them on here. We tried them on, or they kept trying them on in China. We tried them on here. They weren't too bad. We launched them and everyone's like, oh, it's too tight on my, like the thong part of our flip-flops is too tight. Mind blown that there would be like a different toe length. Mm-hmm. Who would have known?
Things you never thought about.
I'm going to check if there are any other questions. It does not look like it. Do you have anything else that you might want to share with everyone regarding a product launch or any other words of wisdom?
I would just say create that calendar, and if it's overwhelming, again, work backwards, because I think your calendar will build itself. You'll learn things as you go, adjust as needed, remain flexible, which is like number one business rule anyways, remain flexible, listen to that consumer. And if it is very overwhelming, again, like using Leslie as a resource, finding someone who has a similar type business or has done what you're doing before, like use that influence of mentorships and of your peers to help in that, right? So maybe you have an uncle who used to work in logistics and you have a logistics question, like ask these people who know, and they can give great insight, right? Because they have experience of things like the flip-flops or other things that, worked or didn't work, and they can share that knowledge with you so you don't have to make that same mistake. I also feel like I always listen to how I built this podcast. I love it so much. And all of those people on there, almost every entrepreneur has like 2 or 3 complete failures before they actually succeed. So I always find that helpful to think like, listen, I'm not going to hit it out of the park my first time. Do not be discouraged, even though it is like disheartening when it doesn't work. But you're like, you know what? I know what doesn't work. And now I'm going to pivot and I'm going to try this and I'm stronger for it. So it almost never works that first time, or it doesn't work, as swimmingly as you think it will, but keep at it. And I think it's those people who have the tenacity. Those are the ones who succeed and who make it. And right now it's a tough time for retail, for things in general. But I think when we're in like recessions or uncertain economic times, it's when the most creative new businesses come through and really like nail what people are needing. I think a lot of those, I'm thinking of that podcast too, a lot of those started when it was like a downturn and they're like, you know what, I'm going to try it, or I'm going to stand out. I'm going to do this or that. And that's what made them successful. So just remember that it's a trying time, but it's also one of the best times to start a new business for sure.
Well, thank you so very much for your time and for your expertise. I want everybody to remember to create a checklist for every single launch. Just write down everything you had to do the last time you put a product up there. And then maybe see if you can launch more than one item at a time. So maybe you have a collection that launches at one time, and then use Amanda's idea of that checklist and then putting it on your calendar and on a wall board so you know how to get it out there on time. Well, thank you, Amanda Campbell. And do you want to share that your family is involved in other small businesses around town?
Sure, they are. My husband is actually one of the owners of Junk Ditch Restaurant. So I actually bounce ideas off of him all the time on personal decisions I'm making at work, even though his business is so different. It's still dealing with people. So he started that. He started with a food truck. We were a little bit hesitant to open a brick and mortar restaurant because it's such an investment. So he tried that with a friend. Their Afine food truck was successful. They opened the Junk Ditch Restaurant. Now there's GK Baked Goods as a part of it. They're, looking up for some new endeavors in the future. And again, right now, restaurant business is generally down, but you have to pivot. So he's had to do a lot of like relying on takeout. They're doing a family meal on Sundays that encourages people to take out a dinner for 4. They can have it at their house. You don't need to be dining in. They did an expansion on their back patio so that it's covered, and now you can use it for winter. Another thing, if your business is launching or has launched previously, there's a lot of grants from the government now that you can qualify for, PPE loans, et cetera. And a lot of businesses that Dan our peers with, they were like, oh, we don't know how to do this. We're like confused by it. I don't think it's real. We're not going to do it. Junk Ditch was able to qualify and receive a PPE loan that, took like 3 months of what their bills would be. And it was a loan that turned into a grant, because they were able to use it for the things that the government required you to, say this is for hourly employees, or it was for your mortgage. It had to qualify for certain things. This new round of PPE loans that's coming out, you have to prove, I think, that your company had a 25% dip in 1 quarter of last year. But as long as you can prove that, you can qualify for, I think it's maybe 6 months of what your income would have been if you can prove on paper. So again, get an accountant that can help you with that, or a tax person. I know a lot of your teammates are just starting out, but if you can prove something, or, you may be able to qualify for something. So just try, right? See what's out there. And I'm sure you always connect them too with like new business startup loans and grants and things that they can qualify for. But this one, the government one, like make sure that you're utilizing what that is, because that's free money that you can use to help keep you on your feet, keep you going. So, research it and be educated on that.
Yes. So everybody go eat at Junk Ditch. And think of Amanda and launching your product at the same time.
Exactly. Well, thanks for having me. It was so fun. I love doing this. And maybe someday we'll get to do one in person when everyone's back together. But great way to spend my birthday with 200 of my closest new friends. Thank you, everyone.
Yes, happy birthday. Yes.
Great. I'm like, it's actually kind of like, seeing some people. So thanks, everyone.
Yes. I have one other request for you. I'm going to check real quick before I jump off. And I know I keep saying that I'm going to jump off, but I just want to make sure there aren't any other questions. So do you have a checklist for what you might do at Vera Bradley, or one that you did, at other companies before you came to Vera Bradley, that we might be able to share with everyone? You may not be able to, but if so.
Sure, for like a launch for a product.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, these are the things that we do.
Sure, I can make like a generic checklist for if you were to have like a product launch, maybe those 5 or 6 like key things that you need to think about in the order, and then that'll just kind of get your ideas going. So yeah, I can work on a generic one to share. Sure. And I'll pass it to you so you can put it in the comments.
Yes, that would be amazing.
Yes, no worries.
Well, thank you and happy birthday.
Oh, thank you. Thanks everybody and good luck and keep at it. I know it's a trying time, but as the field gets smaller, then you can take more of that business and just be creative and be flexible and you'll make it. So just keep at it. I know it's stressful. Been there, am there. Like we're there.
In the middle.
Exactly. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Good luck and you got it.
Well, thanks. Happy birthday and have a great day.
Okay, thank you. Bye everybody. Thanks.
Bye.